Hey, how are ya? Welcome everybody. This is our second webinar in our UX webinar series. Our title today is Increase Mobile Engagement by Turning Users' Feedback into Solutions with an S. I messed up, I'm sorry. And my name is Jorge Simons. I'm a content creator here at Nearsoft, and I'll be your host for today. And I'm accompanied by two excellent UX designers. Here is Diana Arballo and Misael Leon. I'll let them introduce themselves. Hello, Misael. How are ya?
Hey guys, hello, I'm Misael Leon. I'm a UX designer here at Nearsoft, and I'm really happy to be here with you talking about this huge problem that we all face in the software industry, that is low engagement. So stick around.
And Diana Arballo, who's been here forever.
Thank you, Jorge. Hi, audience. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm very excited to share with you all the information that we got for this session.
More than excited, we're nervous. No, I'm kidding. We're part of a larger team called the UX team at Nearsoft. We're a bunch of designers, researchers. We even have a business developer, Sandra, who, by the way, can be the gateway if you need anything from us. And I think we're around 8 people or 9 people now. The family is growing now. Anyway, let's get into what we're going to be doing today. Our time together is going to be well spent. We're going to be talking about common causes of low mobile engagement, techniques to do it yourself, which is basically why this is a webinar. And this actually works in real life. We're going to be studying a case of a grocery shopping app, and after that, a brief Q&A session. By the way, you can send us your questions using the hashtag NearsoftsUXWebinar on Twitter or through the chat. My name there is Jorge Pistola, which loosely means George. So I'll be tending to your every question. And on the next slide, I think I see some familiar faces from a series, I think. What is that?
That's right. They are the guys from the TV series Silicon Valley.
Oh.
This is a comedy show. It's so much fun. Please do yourself a favor and go watch it. And actually, the product team in the show is facing a common problem in the industry. That is, they are facing a high abandon rate, as high as 70%. And this is actually a industry average. So basically what is happening is that the users install the application and interact with it, and they just leave and never come back again. And actually, web apps face that problem as well. And that's why we need to start paying attention to the to the experience that our users are having with our product. And we know that product development is hard. It's a never-ending process, but we are going to talk about some techniques to improve this engagement rate. So we need to start asking ourselves why this is happening. Why are our users leaving our application? Let's see some common causes of this low engagement. Why people are leaving after installing our application. Okay, we have 4 for you today, and we're going to discuss them in detail.
Can you just put the mic in your, because there you go. Thank you.
Right. Okay, hopefully you are listening me to right now loud and clear. And the first one is having a confusing onboarding. That is, we are so much in love with our product, and we want to display all the possible information in one single screen. And this is natural, but we should not yield to the temptation of displaying too much information at once, because we are going to be scaring our users away before they are actually experience the application and what we have inside. So it's a common problem that we want to talk about all the features inside. But think about it this way. Your application, your product is like a toy. You are unwrapping the toy and you want to get your hands on it and play around with it. And having a long onboarding process at the beginning might scare users away. There are several types of onboarding processes that you can do, and for different scenarios. We're going to talk about them in a bit. For now, let's just say that having a long and boring process may cause that your users leave and abandon your application after install it. All right, but what is it that we can do to avoid having this problem? What you could do is just run a series of user interviews in which you are going to talk to people or potential potential clients that might interact with your product. And what you want to discuss here is their habits, their expectations, their barriers, their fears, their hopes even, and the expectations that they have when interacting with your product. And you're going to use all this feedback that they are going to provide to you to determine how that product is going to fit into their lives. And based on that, what you could do is to decide what type of onboarding process you can do. There are a bunch out there that you can do, but let's just discuss the 3 most common out there. The first one is when you have a benefit-oriented onboarding process. This is when you are talking about the benefits that your application will have, but in terms of a subjective experience. That is, if you use my application, you're going to be happier, you're going to be healthier, perhaps you're going to be in touch with your friends, or perhaps you're going to become smarter. So what you do here is just talk about these subjective benefits that your user is going to experience with your application. The other one is having a function-oriented onboarding process. This is when you talk about your product in terms of what they can do inside. Think of a Spotify, for instance. They tell you that you are going to be able to create playlists, instant mixes, even starting a radio from a single song, or inviting your friends to create playlists. So they are not telling you about how happy you are going to be, but what is it that you can do inside the product. The third one is different from the second one. This is a feature-oriented onboarding process, and this is useful when your product is new, or perhaps it functions in a different way from the industry standard. And what you do here is just to highlight where certain features are located. For instance, where is the search bar? Where is the settings icon could be? The only risk that you can face here is treat your users as being dumb. I mean, obviously,
you don't want to make it overcomplicated.
Exactly.
Overly complicated.
Because obviously they are gonna know how to cancel an operation if they see a cross icon.
I was reminded. I've been playing Pokemon Go. Yes, I'm confessing to that on air. And the onboarding process is very interesting because it mimics the original game. Like, you get a professor that is telling you about the world of Pokemon, and then you choose an avatar, and then instead of giving you a long tutorial of how to play the game, they actually make it so that you catch your first Pokemon right there in your house. So it seems that if that would be a longer process, I was actually worried when I first downloaded the app, because if it was too different for the games or too complicated, I would have said, you know what, this is not for me. Because the only thing I want to do is hands-on get Pokemon. But this really was designed so that I could just jump into the action, and it seems logical with what you're saying.
Yeah, and we're going to keep coming back to this idea that let users experience your application first. And if you need to explain something at the beginning, you can do it, but just be careful of how much information you're going to present before they actually experience your product. So if you want hard numbers, what you could do is not going over 5 screens if you are going to do a function-oriented onboarding. If you have 6 or 7, it's way too much, and perhaps you're going to bore your users and they will end up leaving. Or if you're doing a benefit-oriented onboarding process, like explaining how it works and what you can do inside, what you could do is just display 3 or 4 screens. I think if you go over that amount, it's going to be way too much. Right, so the second one that we have is when you have your users filling a long profile before starting with the benefits of your application. A few months ago, we worked on an application that was asking you to fill a lot of information, such as, and they were more related to demographics. Like, I'm a male from 18 to 45 years old. I was asked what is my schedule for driving when I go to work. Yeah, and most of those fields or data I could have filled later. I could have filled them later in the process. So it was like too much, and what we did is just to reduce the amount of data that we were asking for it.
So you can be a person instead of a number.
Yeah, exactly. This is an easy one. You just have to ask yourself: do you really want the phone number right at the beginning? Do you really need it as a company? Perhaps you can ask for that later. So this is again yielding to a temptation of, hey, we got a new user and we want to know as much as we can from them. But this is just again asking too much information at once, and you're gonna bore users and make them feel that it's way too much effort.
This must be a dumb question, but what if, I mean, you're saying we could ask for one or two things. For example, I was thinking about WhatsApp or Telegram or instant messaging apps. They need your number for the core feature was this messaging to work.
Right.
So it's not about a specific thing. It's not like don't ask them their age. It's just ask them what you really need so they can operate the app.
Exactly. I'm not saying that you should not ask for anything. It's just what is the necessary information that you need in that particular moment, so you don't have your users feel trapped. Like, oh my God, when this is gonna be over? I just want to play with the toy that is inside. Okay, but how you do this? What about if you have a long profile? How do I solve this problem? Okay, and what you need to do is just to define your target audience. And you can do this by perhaps running surveys and trying to understand the demographics of what is your target audience exactly. Or perhaps take a look into your metrics from the analytics and see who's visiting you. And you can complement this information with user interviews and to create a persona, because what you want to determine is the target audience lifestyle and habits exactly. Parting from this knowledge of who are your users exactly, you are going to be able to decide what is the necessary information that you require from your users, and what is it that they are going to be willing to give you at different moments of the experience. I always like to say that we should treat our users not as statistics, but as persons. So in this line of idea, I'm not a male 30-something that works in a software company, right? I'm actually I'm a designer that likes to run and go for concerts and listening to music. So
and drinking sometimes.
Yeah, those particular nuances are the ones that you want to discover, and you want to treat your users just like that, as they are.
I think I actually was right when I said you're a person, not a statistic. Like you're a whole subjective experience, which designers and developers need to cater to. Like stop. What I get from these 2 points is stop overwhelming users. Let them experience. Let them unwrap the gift that is your app. Probably your app is amazing, and if you cover it in too much information, nothing good is going to come up with it.
Exactly, and this is, in the end, is a recurring process. You learn from these activities, and you create a solution, then you test it, and you can improve it if you start over, perhaps complementing with other activities. Diana is going to talk about some others.
Yeah.
We have 2 more mistakes, huh?
Yeah, we have the third problem or common causes of low engagement that is related with the version limitations. And this is happened because using the limited version to promote your app is a common strategy. Most of the companies tend to use this strategy, but if we don't know how to use it, it could work against our business goals and become an engagement problem. So, for example, in the real life, if we want to buy, a new pair of shoes, we have the opportunity to try them, to feel them, and see if these shoes are the right fit for us before to make a decision. With digital products, we tend to expect the same. We tend to expect the similar behavior because users and people want to have the opportunity to interact with the product, explore, and then make a decision if they want to buy it or not. So as consumers, we want to explore the products, get to know all the benefits, and then make that decision. For that, limiting or in some cases restricting completely core features of the app damages the experience and increase the risk of the user leaving. And we might think that closing features of the product will make them more attractive or desirable, but how do we know, and how do you know to find the balance and when we're trying to increase the engagement? How we can be sure that 2 or 3 different features works? Well, if you recently tried something similar in your mobile app and low engagement persists, what we could recommend you today is to run an A/B test. An A/B test, for those here in the audience who are not familiar, is when you test 2 different versions of your products to see which one performs better, right?
That's actually something we use a lot in marketing when comparing
Yeah.
like landing pages and stuff like that, because it's very simple, like 50 versus 50 things, 50%, I'm sorry. And then you can see like two conducts on your users testing only one feature. There's not much to it.
Yeah. For example, in the case of the low engagement, because you are closing a lot of features or are trying to get users to upgrade a premium version, you can run, for example, a version 8, and in the version 8 you could have 5 or 7 features open, and in the B version you can have only, for example, 3. And the result doing this should be that you will get a clear answer on how many open features are enough for your users. It could be probably 3, 5, or 7, or whatever the number is, but the A/B testing will help you to decide that number. And then you will be able to decide if you want to try closing or opening these features, or perhaps go for a free trial version, for example, or try another different strategy. It depends on your business goals.
So there's like no golden decision regarding like how a freemium app should work. I remember I had this app for iPad called Paper by 53, and they gave you lots of colors and lots of brushes for free. And what I could create was so awesome. I can't draw for my life. But what I could create was so awesome. I ended up paying like I think $15 to get all the brushes and all the colors, and it was seamless. Like it was for me it was the logical next step. Like I need to buy this so I can make even better drawings, even though I don't draw.
Yeah,
In a
but
way.
you had the chance to experience the whole potential
Yeah.
of the product, right? Yeah.
My decision was, if I can do this now with like 3% of the app, when I get the 100%, I'm gonna rock. Like I'm gonna be the next Picasso or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we have these 4 common causes of low engagement that is related with the complicating settings. Most of the times, people don't want to work or think more than they have to. And most of the people, we don't like to read the manual to learn how the product works. But to be honest, I have friends that likes to read the manual. Hi, Judith. And as people, we don't want to set up complicated settings to reach the full potential of a product, right? And
We don't read manuals.
no. Well, a couple of weird people likes to do
Maybe
that.
like 0.01% of the general population.
Yeah. But a couple months ago, we worked with an app that offers a smart lock screen depending on which location users are. And at the beginning, it sounded like a cool product, useful, smart. But in the reality, users had to define all these different scenarios by themselves, fill in information like addresses, schedules, all this info, fill it by themselves in a process that is completely manually and in a bunch of different places. And once they entered all this information, they even had to wait for about 5 or 7 days for the app to recollect all the data, so it will actually become a useful product. So imagine that extra effort that users had to perform to get something from the product. If we ask people to do setup like this, we definitely will scare them away. And they are going to look for another product that works better and it not sound complicated, right?
Right.
So, but here's the tricky part. How do you know if you have a complicating settings problem? Because maybe you don't know if you have this problem and this is a cause of your low engagement. So how you can know? what we can recommend today is to perform a couple of rounds of usability testing. You can recruit 5 people, run the test, and see what are the barriers that users are facing when they are interact with your product. So you will be able to identify the low points in the user journey. And then with this data, you can decide what to dismiss, what needs to be redefined, what is not important, and what can be improved in next iterations.
Just so we're completely sure, and maybe some of the viewers are confused, what is a user journey exactly? We're not all experts here.
No, it's okay. Thanks for the question. User journey is when a user goes from the point A to B, for example, and they have to perform different tasks to accomplish that.
Okay.
So in this journey, you can establish different goals that you want to measure and run the test and see how the users interact in this process from A to B. And then you will see in which parts of this journey users have problems and some barriers.
So you can actually design the user journey so that instead of like having complicated settings that users need to understand from point A, maybe they're gonna go from A to B, and then from B to C they need to tell you their age. Maybe from C to D they need to tell you their schedule, and then setting things along the way. Maybe?
Yeah, or perhaps your setting is complicated because you are not taking advantage of some technology.
Okay.
That you can apply for your product, for example.
All right. So what we just talked about is the 4 common causes that we have identified for low mobile engagement. If you're facing one of these 4, we recommend you to follow the activities that we just talked about. The first one is confusing onboarding process. If you are facing this problem, that the only thing you need to do is to talk to your users and define what is the best onboarding process that best fit your product. The second one is when you have a long profile before they actually experience your application. What you could do here is just define who's your target audience exactly and define exactly the information that you require from them. The third one is a very common one in which we are locking away features and preventing users from experiencing the full potential of your application before they fully engage with it. What you need to do here is just to decide how much you should hide from your users. You could do this by A/B testing. How much is necessary to hide away, and how much is necessary to disclose before they get engaged. And the final one that Diana just explained is having a complicated settings. Don't let users read a manual, and don't make it overcomplicated so they can start feeling and sensing the potential of your product.
So rule number 1 of the UX Live, don't bother the user.
Right, let them experience what you have inside, and probably is good enough for them to engage.
That's so romantic, like let them experience the world with their hands and stuff like that. I'm kidding.
That's exactly what happened to our friends in Pied Piper in the Silicon Valley show. If our friends had done this, they wouldn't have gotten into that problem in the first place as they did in the show. Because the problem was, and this is a spoiler alert, by the 3rd season they realized that they have like thousands of installations, but only a few active users. And they were asking themselves why this was happening.
They need a UX designer in their team.
But this happens in real life as well.
Yeah, we have a case study to share with the audience today, briefly. This is a product that is called Chockwell, that is a grocery shopping app. And they came to us because they were facing a low engagement problem. 20% of their users completed the profile but never come back. So we did a full research with the Chockwell team to help them with the low engagement. And we performed different activities during the research, like remote user interviews. We performed usability testing rounds with them. We also conducted a cart sorting session, and finally we translate all the feedback gathered for these different UX activities by using a affinity diagram.
Just a slight commercial. You can find more about this design methods on ux.nearsoft.com. We have, I think, blog posts and all sorts of content for you if you intend to better your engagement.
Thank you. Thanks for the commercial. And once we got all this feedback, we work in a multidisciplinary approach. As you can see here in the picture, we have the product owner, the product manager, developers, the UX designer, and also the nutrition expert. All together, we get in a room and redesign new features. We improve the current ones, but also we work a lot in adding a new casual language for the app, because we realized that the language, it was part of the major findings, and language was a feature actually. But maybe you are wondering, yeah, right, we know a lot of different methodologies, we are familiar with usability testing or perhaps user interviews, but how you translate users' feedback into real solutions? So,
Right. I think this is the part that scare most designers away, because it's easy to say run usability testings and do interviews and perhaps do a card sorting or do all this bunch of methodologies, but you will end up with a large data set of information, and it can be really overwhelming to have all this information together, and then the question is, what do we do now? It's so much noise out there. Well, affinity diagram will let you see patterns among the noise. Let me walk you through a brief example. So what you can see here is all findings that we got from the user interviews and the usability testing with Shopwell. In pink, what you can see is all quotes and all the feedback that users provided. You can see here that, well, you cannot see it, but what is actually there is their motivations, habits, barriers, and things that they were saying that they would like to have in an application like this, or what is it that they are facing with their health issues, for instance. And we realized there that they actually always buy groceries and food for someone else.
yep.
And in the next level, on the orange level, what we found is just the common problems. Once you gather all similar quotes in a single column, what you get is a pattern. And all of a sudden, you start realizing that people are talking about the same things, even though they are different persons. And this is very cool, because you get to identify these common problems, these unspoken problems that people do not tell you exactly, but you can start seeing it arising from this noise.
Are users liars?
No.
It's a serious question.
No, it's a serious question, I know. And Steve Jobs always talked about this. People do not know what they want because they cannot verbalize it. But you can start seeing what is it that they would like to have deep down inside. So this is a good tool to spot those unspoken problems. Okay, now that you have these problems identified, you need to translate those into expectations, how that problem looks in a positive way. I mean, I do want to have an expert to talk to. Oh, well, the problem is I don't have no one to trust. So the expectation is I would like to have an expert to talk to related to health and nutrition, right? So that is the user expectation. And then you go up one level, and then you start thinking about solutions, features. But you do this with your team, because what you want to understand is what is it that you can build in the amount of time and resources that you have. And obviously, everybody's going to have their different input. Me as a designer will like to have this process done in a very particular way. Then the developer will say, but we cannot do this with the library that we are using so far. And the nutritionist will say something like, well, but users think of food in these terms. So that's where the magic happens, actually. And, well, that's basically how you make sense of large data sets of information from research.
This is how we translate it into solutions.
If
and
you want to know
features.
more, feel free to reach out to us at ux.nearsoft.com to find out more. And if we're going to talk about some recommendations to make this translation, we can say these four.
Just before you hit that,
Okay.
so the affinity diagram is basically like a tunnel, right? That is
Funnel.
like a
Funnel.
funnel. That's the word. Like I was missing an F. I'm sorry. It's basically like a funnel. You have all the opinions of the people, all the feedback, and then you're like sort of like sorting it out until you have the goodies.
Mhm.
Okay.
Basically, you have a lot of noise, and you
Mhm.
need to see patterns. And once you identify that pattern problem, you need to come up with solutions.
So rather than sorting, it's about connecting the dots and finding patterns with user behavior and your features. Okay.
Right.
Got it.
That's why it's so important to define your audience first, so you can get to talk to the right people.
Yep.
So you don't get information that you will not need, because
Or waste your time with other people that are bothering other people. Okay.
exactly.
Nice.
All right. So let's sum up some 4 recommendations to turn users' feedback into solution. The first one is obviously just make it as a multidisciplinary team. Again, you need perspectives from everybody, from technical side, from business side, from design as well. And in our case, it was easy to see that we needed a nutritionist for this health application. But if you're doing a sport application, for instance, well, bring in some sport experts in whatever field you require. This will open your mind to new possibilities, right, Diana?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So the second one is don't take feedback as literal. Excuse me. People will say a lot of things, and you should not take this and going right away and build what
Yeah.
people are requiring and asking you. If they are asking you for a filter, perhaps they don't really need to filter. Perhaps what they need to do is just to save time. So this is
Mhm.
what you need to see. What is it the problem that you really need to solve? Perhaps it's not a filter. Perhaps it's a process that is easier to digest, right? The third one is iterate constantly based on business goals. That is, in our case, we had this low engagement of 20% that we needed to increase by 5%. And what we did is just to treat that as a goal, and we defined some series of activities, and then we created the solution, then we test them again. And this is the way to do it, because your product will never be finished, but what you can do is to keep increasing it with time, over time.
Yeah, and perform different UX activity doesn't mean that is the cure of the whole your problems and are going to increase all the low engagement. It's a never-endless process.
Yeah.
But
But it's an opportunity actually, because you get to increase more and more over
Yeah.
time.
right.
And that's a good point, by the way, because what is working for your app, let's say in January of 1985 for some reason, won't be working in the present. So you need to constantly be iterating so that you
Right.
can add new things or even new technologies to your application.
Yeah, because the market changes, user changes, and technology changes as well. All of a sudden, we have a snapshot changing the way we interact with the product, and that might change a lot. And now we got Pokemon again.
And now we have Instagram that wants to behave like Snapchat.
Like Snapchat, exactly. Okay, so the third one is that you should treat your
Oh, God.
iterations as hypotheses. That is, if we tweak this in the product right now, this is what we think is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, to prove that hypothesis, you can do a series of activities to prove your point right. So that is, if we want to increase the engagement rate, perhaps if we change the onboarding process from benefit-oriented to function-oriented, perhaps we're going to increase the engagement rate. And this is the way to do it, because you need a milestone to get there, to know that you are succeeding with your product.
Yep.
So this is what we recommend you. Multidisciplinary team, don't take feedback as literal, iterate constantly, and treat these iterations as hypotheses.
And here comes the best part of it all, which is before we leave the Q&A section, we have our first question from Alfonso. He asks, do you think that targeting the wrong audience could be the main cause of getting useless feedback?
Right. I'm going to quote Laura Klein.
Mm-hmm.
She said that either you have the wrong product or the wrong audience.
Oh,
There's have to be a match between those two. Perhaps your product is correct, but you are addressing it to a different audience. Or perhaps your audience is right. That is the market that you want to address,
Mhm.
but your product is not from the right it's not being seen or built from the right perspective. So either you have one incorrect or the other one, but definitely you have one right.
Okay. I'm going to experiment a bit more with the question. What other reasons could be that the feedback of users is stale or not worth it, besides like getting the wrong audience?
Perhaps it's not the right timing for the product. Think of Google Glasses. That was such a cool idea, but it's just that the market wasn't ready. We weren't ready for having people recording you all the time. I think that's going to happen eventually, but the market was not ready. So if I have to pick one of those other reasons, I will say that the timing in the market should be the right one.
We have another question here. It says, this only works if the app is already made. What if we're still prototyping the app? Can we still ask users?
Of course, you can perform different UX activities to get feedback from them.
Right.
You can, for example, run a usability testing in paper, right? And you can get feedback from users instead of to create the whole product and then try to test them.
Right. Actually, what you're asking is the right way to go. If you have nothing finished just yet, you still can do the same activities that we mentioned with a prototype that is unfinished. So the only barrier here is to overcome your natural anxiety to test something that is not done. We don't want to invite people to our houses when they are not fully furniture with furniture inside. but don't fall into that trap. So if you have something, anything, it's better to show it to your users now than later.
So it basically expose whatever you have,
Right.
like in a sense to the right users,
Because
and then you'll have the more feedback, the better, I guess.
Yes, because product development is actually all about learning by reaching milestones in the process. So if you are in a very early stage, it's the same. You still need to learn what's the best approach.
We have another question about Marisol. That name sounds familiar. How do you measure in a quantitative or qualitative fashion each iteration? That's actually a good question.
This all depends on your product and the metrics that you think is the metrics that you think are gonna provide you a good insight that your business is growing. In the case of on our app that we presented here was the engagement, but it could be abandon rate or perhaps could be the conversion rate. That is how many people click on this button, or perhaps your metrics could be how many people complete the actual purchase process. So it all depends. How do you measure success for your application? Perhaps in the case of our friend from the last question, he's starting. Perhaps his success metric could be how many people actually download the application, and that could be a success. But if your application is later in the product development process, perhaps you already want to convert people into buying a subscription, for instance. So that could be your metric. So it could be just clicking a button, or perhaps completing a process, or perhaps increasing the purchases, or even could be lowering the amount of tickets from support. That could be another success metric as well.
That would be a good success metric for Pokemon Go. I'm kidding. It's just that since it's a worldwide release right now, I think they just added all of South America in the last 24 hours. We've been getting so much bugs, and we're very unhappy without our Pokemon. Anyway, it seems like the answer to the question is basically listen or cater to your business goals too.
Exactly. And definitely, what stage of the product cycle you are in? Are you still in validation, or you want to increase sales?
So I get a few ideas from this webinar. Number one is always listen to your user. We've been saying this since like 4 years ago, I think. But no matter in which part of the process you're at, user interaction with users is going to help you mold or form. You said something that I'm going to quote right now from you yesterday we were talking about the webinar. You said user feedback forms and informs what you're doing as a designer, because as a designer, you don't need to be like a god of design. You only need to facilitate the process of giving developers and giving QAs and giving the whole team, which you're supposed to be working in tandem, like everyone at the same time, giving them the goodies about the users so they can build something awesome for them and for the users too.
Right. This is a shout out for all designers out there. Don't let them treat you like you are the expert, that you know all the answers. What we do know is to facilitate the process of learning so the whole team can learn how to improve the product itself.
Oh, I got a good question. Last question before we leave. Are users always right, like customers? That's a good one.
This is a tricky question, and I will say no.
Oh, okay.
Because of the same trend that people might not be able to verbalize exactly what they need or what they want until they see it. Your job as a designer or as a product designer is to uncover what is happening in the market and how you could improve a problem that users might not be aware of it just yet.
And find the balance between your product and your business goals and what the people want and what the people really need. So.
Yeah, my product manager always say, okay, users want that, but we cannot afford that at this moment. So
exactly.
we are going forward with that eventually in a roadmap. So yes, your users are right, but in terms of business decisions,
might not be possible.
Might not be possible just yet, but still that informs the vision that you have for your product. There's no other way to do it. I mean, users should be the first one to get business.
Okay, we love you, users. That's all we have for today.
No, we have a last question.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
From Denise, she's asking if the affinity diagram is the best technique to translate users' feedback into solutions. And the answer is no. There is a lot of different techniques that we can use. Today we only present this technique that we use in Chopwell, but there is a different UX methods or different UX activities that you can perform to translate the feedback. And the thing here is to find the patterns, find the motivations, what they are expecting from your product, and then try to translate it into a feature. For example, in Chopwell, we realized that the language was a feature, and it was something that you can build with the technology. The developers, they are not part of their, for example, their tasks, but this task was part of the nutrition expert. She helped us to create this feature.
Wow.
So if you want to learn more about how to translate feedback into solutions, please use the hashtag and send us your questions, and probably the next webinar could be related with the different techniques and or advice about it.
I think, by the way, I think the first webinar goes hand in hand with this one, because in the other one we were using analytics to describe why certain patterns of behavior within the numbers were happening, and now we have a way to connect that to users. So this is a friendly reminder, whatever that is, reminder that we will keep doing these webinars as long as you keep telling us what you need to know to improve and enhance your product. So if you want to know more, please visit ux.nearsoft.com or hit us up with an email at ux-team@nearsoft.com. Or if you like it the old-fashioned way and you want to talk to a human, Sandra, who's a business developer, is awesome at taking requests and feedback. You can call her at that number. I'm going to try to read it. I might get it wrong. It's 408-890-2115. And again, as an infomercial, 408-890-2115. We're available for questions. We will be sending the materials we used in this presentation, including the example, to your emails. If you registered, if you haven't registered, please, you can send us an email to ux-team@nearsoft.com, and we'll be happy to send them to you too. You can follow us. You can follow Misaelo in Twitter, is @Misaelo, as if it was Italian.
Double L
for Misaelo. And you can keep using Twitter to send us your questions to #NearsoftUX webinar. And I think I'm done. Is there something else you'd like to say before we leave?
Yeah, thank you for your time for being with us today. We were really happy and hope to see you guys around and to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, and please, if you know people that might be interested in these topics, share the video with them at the end. Thank you.
So that's it. Thank you everyone for your time, and we really enjoy doing this. See you in a month's time for a new Case of the UX Clinic. I'm kidding. For a new webinar. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.